Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show. You're about to hear one of my amazing clients, Lisa, share how she was able to sell a 4K coaching package for the first time, how she was also able to sell a 10-session package of coaching, which before she was struggling to even sell single sessions, and how she really grew her business from the ground up, working with me in private coaching. And so enjoy this little testimonial before we dive into today's episode. But if you are feeling like it's a struggle to get your visibility up, to get clients, things like that, you're always welcome to book a free consult at haileyrowe.com, where you will learn more about my custom coaching options, my Inner Circle, which is my 6-month private and small group hybrid program. So I can't wait to connect with you and hear more about your business goals. But until then, let's dive into her testimonial.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ryan. I'm a personal trainer, nutrition, and wellness coach, and I run both in-person and online health coaching programs. When I first met Hailey, I was only a month into my business, and I thought I was doing everything right. I was working all of the time, but nothing was landing. I was beyond overwhelmed, and I was stuck, not seeing the client growth and build that I was hoping for when I first started this business. To be honest, the word investment kind of gave me a mini heart attack. I didn't think I was there yet or that I was allowed to invest in that type of service. And I'm also pretty stubborn. So I was like, I can figure this out myself. I'll just use free resources. It'll be fine. I almost said no. But the more I thought about it, I could tell there was something different about Hailey that made her stand out. She didn't make me feel like I was just another client, another random person to add to her email list. She genuinely wanted to be my mentor and support me on a deeper level, helping me make my goals and dreams come true. Fast forward just 2 months into working with her, I sold my first high-ticket coaching package, something I never thought my life would look like or something I never thought I'd be able to do, but here we are. We fine-tuned my website, clarified my offer, and re-strategized how I was going about social media, which was my biggest stressor, and now it's just another thing. Also getting rid of confusion, knowing what I offer instead of just, I'm a coach, cleared up a lot. I started connecting with hundreds of people, and now I have a running list of events and networking opportunities lined up for the next 6 months of this entire year. Most importantly, I became braver and more confident, reaching out, offering help, offering my heart and my mission. I'm not afraid to just be like, hey, this is who I am, would love to see how we can collaborate. Hailey has been there 24/7, answering my questions, calming irrational thoughts, and helping me move through doubt as a new and young business owner. She's not just strategic and smart. She is real, she's fun, she cares, and she is there for you. I could talk to her about my business, my personal life, how it all ties together. We talked about my dance career, kind of what makes me who I am and how I can offer that to others. Hailey helped me grow as a business owner, but even more, I grew so much as a person. 2 months ago is a whole different girl, and she taught me to take care of myself, not only physically, but mentally, give myself grace every day, and actually enjoy this journey. I was so bad at just working 12 hours a day, and she was like, Lisa, take a deep breath and look how far you've come. I would recommend Hailey to anyone, and to be honest, I might deny future coaches because genuinely no one can compare to her and the experience I've had for 2 months. I remember the first 2 weeks sending her so many emails a day. I was like, this is my new idea, look at this, what do I do? Can you edit this? Can you fix this? I would invest into a retirement because I was like, I want to get that started. And I was like, I'm gonna go broke. All these crazy thoughts, and she would respond with communication, so much length and thought into that, and I could never thank her enough. So if you are hesitant, it's okay, but take that deep breath and take that next step forward because your life will be changed forever after working with Hailey.
Today we're going to talk about a topic that I feel is really common among new coaches and service providers who want to be getting paying clients. And you may relate, you may feel like right now you're just not attracting the right people. You're not attracting ready to buy paying clients. And if that is you, today we're going to talk about 3 to 4 shifts that you can make in your marketing, in your sales, to help people actually be ready to buy, and also address the common concern that you're not finding the right people. So the first thing I want to start with is just a mindset shift that your business is not about finding ready clients. It's about marketing and doing the nurturing process in a way that makes them ready to buy. So it's not about finding ready clients, it's about helping them get ready. And there will be some people who are at that stage where they are ready and they don't need a lot of nurturing. They are just, aware of what they're looking for, things like that. But there will also be people who won't be ready because they have not gotten the trust with you. They may not be in the phase of change that is ready to make that change or sign up for a program or get help. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, if you want to get ready to buy clients, you have to understand the phases of change. So before we even go into the phases of change, I do also want to let you know that there's different types of buyers. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen a chart or, something like this in business where it shows like early adopters and, people who jump in on something at the end of its sales cycle, things like that. So I'm going to share what that is. So in business, we have innovators, meaning people who want to be the first to join a program or do something, and they don't need to see other people doing it, and they don't care that it's a new product or a new program. They are just like, I want to be that person who goes forward and jumps on new things. There's also early adopters, which are people who want to, get in on a newer product, but they need to see that, at least someone's done it before, or that, it's been around for a little while. Then there's the early majority, which is just people who, at this stage, it's been around a little while. They feel more confident buying it because they can see past history. They can maybe see some testimonials. They maybe contemplate a little more than early adopters and innovators. They may analyze the information you give them about your offer more than others. There's the late majority, which is people who jump in after something's been around a long time. They probably need a lot of nurturing. They probably need a lot of information before they make a decision. And then there's laggards, which is like the last stage, which is just people who are probably really skeptical and, maybe get in on something very late in a product's life cycle. So just to give you like a heads up about the percentage of who falls into these categories, 2.5% of the population are innovators. So those people who you just want to be totally ready to buy, not need much nurturing, want them to be totally on board, that's like 2.5% of the population. So that's why we need marketing. That's why we need consistency. That's why we need content and nurturing and things like that for people, to help those people who are not innovators, help those people who do still want to get help, but they're not just going to decide on a whim that they're ready to work with you. And I think so many coaches just go in thinking everyone's going to be ready to buy. They just need to find those right people. And if they're not, they're doing something wrong. But the truth is, it's just 2.5% of the population is going to be like totally ready to buy. Okay, so the 13.5% are early adopters. So that's that second stage. 34% are early majority. 34% are late majority, and 16% are laggards. So the majority of people fall in the middle. They need some nurturing. They're not going to be totally ready to buy when they first meet you. And that's where most people sit. So if you're feeling frustrated that everybody you meet isn't an easy sell, well, just know it's not you. It's just that that's how the cycle of buyers, that's what it looks like. Okay, so now let's talk about the phases of change. Okay, when somebody decides that they want to make a change, they go through kind of phases. They're not just like, okay, all of a sudden I'm going to revamp my life and it's going to be easy and I'm ready to go. When someone's thinking about buying a personal training package or a health coaching package or a life coaching package, they're going to go through some phases that they before buying. So the first one is awareness, and that is recognizing that a problem exists, okay? So let's say you help women going through perimenopause problems. Maybe right now what they're dealing with is they've had their first hot flash and they're starting to notice more weight around their midsection, and they're, not sleeping as well as they used to. And so they're starting to be like, what is going on with me? I feel like things are not as easy as they used to be. So awareness is that first phase. Contemplation is then considering possible solutions. So this is when maybe they're having more and more hot flashes, they're getting more and more tired, and they're like, okay, actually, I need to start figuring this out. Maybe they buy some melatonin because they think that'll help their sleep problem. Maybe they start following Instagram accounts about, weight loss in your midsection. Maybe they start listening to some podcasts to consider, what is perimenopause, and they start researching, okay? Then there's preparation, and this is where they get even more into the researching. This is where they're gathering information, they're gathering resources, they're probably, trying to start implementing. And many of you guys go through these phases on your coaching journey. You start to realize, okay, getting clients isn't as easy as I thought. Then you contemplate, okay, I'm gonna, maybe read some business blogs and set up a website, and you start preparing, stage 3, preparing information. I'm going to get my stuff ready for a web designer, and I'm going to maybe take some free webinars online, et cetera, et cetera. Then we hit stage 4, which is the action phase. And that's where somebody's actually making a purchase decision. That's where they're like, okay, I'm fed up. I've gone to the free webinars. I've tried the things. This melatonin isn't really doing the trick in my perimenopause example, right? And now they're like, okay, I need something that's sustainable, something that's permanent, something that where I can get hands-on help. And that's where they may entertain getting a coach or working with someone like yourself. And then the last stage is maintenance, which is continuing to use your solution. So that's where someone, maybe does your program and then maybe has some tune-up sessions afterwards or stays in your membership or something for continued support potentially. But most of the time they're just implementing what they learned and their problem has been pretty much solved and they're feeling really good about their change that they made. So the reason I'm sharing these stages with you is a couple reasons. One, when you're meeting people at networking events and online, you have to try to identify which stage of change are they at. Are they needing some nurturing and education and resources, or are they at the stage where they're like, yeah, this is really serious and I'm ready to work with someone? I will tell you too that it depends on where you're doing your lead gen, what kind of people you'll attract. So what I mean is, example, if you have good Google search engine optimization keywords and someone is Googling perimenopause fat loss coach and you come up and they were already looking for that, they might actually be in the action phase. They might be contemplating signing up with somebody because they're literally looking up what you do, right? So they're going to be warmer leads. Versus if you meet someone at a networking event and they might be going through perimenopause and they're a woman, we don't know what stage they're at necessarily, right? So it's going to be a little more, needing to figure out where they're at. And it's the same thing of like, if you list yourself on a directory site where people go to find a coach, that's going to be more of a slam dunk, or people further along in their, decision-making journey than somebody who, again, you meet at a workshop or something. However, let's compare networking group to doing a workshop. Networking group, you're going to meet all types of people. They're going to be at all different stages of change. It's good because you meet a lot of people at one time. Obviously, people who go to networking events are interested in like personal growth. However, let's say you're hosting a workshop about perimenopause fat gain. That's going to attract people who are already in that preparation phase of change, gathering information before they make a purchase. So that's going to attract people further along in the buying cycle, right? So I'm sharing this with you, and same thing with like Facebook groups or Reddit forums or things like that, where people are asking questions about a certain problem or goal. They're going to be further along. They're going to be in that contemplation or preparation phase of change compared to just, for example, people on Instagram scrolling, maybe just in the awareness phase, maybe just kind of recognizing they have a problem, but they're not really looking for solutions yet. They're just enjoying their Instagram scroll time, for example. So my point here is to show you that we need to think about what lead gen strategies are you implementing, and we want a variety. It's not a bad thing to go to a networking event, but we want a variety of, you want some of your people to come from maybe searching you or the title of work you do and finding your Google My Business profile. We want some people finding you maybe through doing local workshops. We want some people for you to meet at networking events and nurture them, right? So it's okay to have a variety, but just remember that you're going to attract different people, and also, people at different phases. And also, your job is to help someone go through these phases of change faster with your marketing. Okay. So the thing is, a lot of marketers and people who are putting things out there online, they're only targeting the action phase of people, which means that they're missing 80% of potential clients. Because if all you're posting about is, are you ready to lose fat and do XYZ? Well, then you need my program. But you're missing out on all the people who are in that resource gathering phase, information gathering phase. So what we need to do is create content and create marketing and, be interested in people to find out what do they want to see from you, what information do they want to gather, and give that to them so that you're not just speaking to ready to buy people, which is a very small percentage of people. You're actually speaking to people who need to get a little more education first, need to maybe hear some stories that, what's possible for them, things like that. So my action step for you, now that you know these phases of change, is to say, okay, how can I create content, marketing, storytelling in a way that can hit on these people in different phases, so that I'm not only just hoping that everyone's ready to buy, right? Now, the other thing we have to do, we're moving on to step 2, which is you have to see yourself as a guide through these phases of change. So we've touched on this a little bit, but we have to position yourself as a guide who nurtures prospects through each phase. And we have to emphasize that marketing is education and relationship building, not just selling, right? So for the awareness phase, one thing you can do is create content that articulates a problem that someone might not fully recognize yet. In other words, going back to our perimenopause example, a woman might not even know she's in perimenopause. She just might be thinking, what is wrong with me? I am falling apart. So you might create some content that's like, feel like things just don't bounce back as quick as they used to. You are waking up feeling not well rested. You're noticing more fat in your midsection, things like that. Well, did you know that you may be going through perimenopause if you're between the ages of blah, 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 right? So content that kind of articulates a problem they might not fully recognize yet. For me, for my niche, I might do a post about, are you got your certification and you're trying some things out on your own, but you're starting to realize that getting clients isn't as easy as you thought. And the problem is you insert whatever the problem is. You don't have a plan, or you don't have a niche, or whatever it is. And then I might help them recognize that might be something they need, and they can get that through my freebie or my live webinar or my program or whatever. But point is, usually it'll start with a freebie or a webinar of some kind. But notice how I'm articulating a problem they may not realize. Oh, I didn't realize that I need to have a marketing plan, or I need to have a niche, or whatever. Okay, so awareness is key. Then contemplation, you can create content that is, for example, case studies or testimonials showing transformation, helping someone see that there are solutions out there. Because contemplation phase is someone considering possible solutions. So if you can create content that helps them see that there's been some success stories you could share or things like that, that would be great. Preparation. So what the preparation phase is where people are gathering info. So if you could put out FAQ content, helping somebody, understand what kind of things they need to be working on and help them prepare whatever resources, effort, time, etc., that they need to put into solving a problem. But also, this is where a low risk offer comes into play. If you could have a low risk thing where someone could come to a live coaching session with you, like maybe you run a group coaching session once a month and people can come see what it's like, or you have a trial package or something with a guarantee, something that lowers risk for people. The preparation phase might, if you have something like that, it might move them to the next phase because they're at that stage where they're almost ready to take action, but they're just not quite. And this is where you need something to kind of help them take the leap of faith. So preparation phase would be like FAQ content, giving a low risk offer, something like that. Then we have the action phase, which is clear calls to action about your offer and how it works and how it gets them into action. And then we have the maintenance phase, which is onboarding. It's really kind of taking them through the transformation, but also giving them an option after they finish your program to maintain their results. So action phase would be the kind of content you're probably already posting, which is like about your offer and the benefits and all that. But just we want a more well-rounded approach so that we're hitting all the different stages of change. And I think one thing that's really important is to know that there are going to be silent viewers that are in that contemplation or awareness or preparation phase, and they're never going to engage on your content or tell you that they've been watching, but they are. Because I can't tell you how many times I've had people come reach out and book calls and all that with me, and they'll say, I've been on your email list for like 2 years, right? So it's not your job to say, okay, everyone needs to move through these phases of change in my timeline. It's their journey to go through these phases of change, and it takes some people 2 days to move through all these phases, and it takes some people 3 years to move through all these phases. So your job is to show up as strong as you can to help them move through these phases of change, but it's not your job to, blame them and think, oh, I'm attracting the wrong people because so-and-so's taking a long time to decide to change. So that's why we need volume, and that's why we need consistency with marketing. Okay, next step is to see everyone as a potential client. So one thing that I've talked about in the past when I talk about 3 traits it takes to succeed as an entrepreneur is solution-orientedness, willingness, and being coachable. And when I talk about willingness, one of the things I talk about is being willing to treat everyone like a client, because many of you will think, well, I'm giving so much away, or, it just feels like so much work to give, and you have this like transactional energy. And when you see everyone as a potential client, suddenly marketing gets a lot easier. And I think it actually really helps your business in the long run. And it also helps you let go of transactional energy and instead just come from serving. And when you come from serving, you can actually sustain it and it feels good and marketing feels more fun, versus when you're like, okay, I'm putting my hand out. Where is everyone? Come to me. Let's talk about me and my offer. That's where the marketing gets poor, right? And not good. So here's the thing. We want to challenge your audience, or I want to challenge you, to not rule people out too early. A lot of you think, oh, if they're not perfect, if they tell me they have budget issues, or if they tell me that they already have had a coach in the past, or if they tell me that they have a busy summer, they're automatically ruled out. oh, I can't work with that person, or that person's not my exact niche, so I can't work with that person. And I say when you're early on in your business, you should have a niche for online if it helps you speak to the right people and it helps give you focus and it helps you know where to find leads better. But you should be open to kind of coaching whoever comes your way. And if you feel you can help them, obviously. But my whole point here is don't rule people out. Don't judge your prospects all the time. Don't just be so quick to say, oh, they're not perfect, so I'm like closing that out. No, explore and be open and willing to work with people and be open and willing to find solutions for them and be open and willing to customize, especially if you're new. You may have a package, but maybe you customize something. Maybe you add in something that they need, right? So a lot of times too, not ready, like if you see everyone is not ready, it just means that they're not educated enough yet or not convinced of the value. So sometimes if you are ruling people out because you think, oh, they brought up like the slightest hesitation, it's just that they don't get it yet. They're not seeing the value is greater than the cost, and so they're sharing their hesitations with you, which is actually a good thing. You want to know that information so that you can coach on it, address it in your content, things like that. And one of the things that I like to do is share examples of hesitant clients who became your best customers. So, example, I had a client who was so hesitant to work with me because she thought, oh, I have to go try things on my own first. I haven't really tried on my own yet. And I haven't given it a fair shot. And she also wasn't even sure what kind of coach she wanted to be, which a lot of people come to me and they say, oh, I need to figure out my niche or my message first before I work with you, which is actually something I work on with clients. And I'm like, no, please don't. Like, come so we can work on it together and get you started on the right foot instead of like trying to go do random things by yourself and then maybe having to change it later and coming back to like troubleshoot. I'd rather just start on a fresh footing, right? But anyways, so I use this example of this client who told me, I don't even know if I want to have a YouTube channel, or I don't know if I want to be a coach, or I don't know what kind of coach I want to be. I am like so fresh. I don't know anything about business. And she was just very hesitant to make the investment because it was a big investment for her. And through our work together, she was able to book her first high ticket 3K client. Then she booked a 5K client. She made more money than she did in her corporate job. And she was able to stay home with her baby. And it was great. But she had to take that leap of faith. And she also really changed her sales mindset. She used to think sales was convincing or persuading people. And through our coaching, she understands now that coaching is selling pretty much. And that it's about asking questions, getting curious, partnering with someone to find solutions, inviting them to your solution if it makes sense. So the whole point of that story is to show when people have hesitations about working with me or they think I got to go try more things by myself first, I'm like, no, let's try it together and do it in a way that, even if you're a beginner, this client didn't even know what kind of coach she wanted to be. But through our work together, she was able to figure that out quicker and move faster than if she was trying things on her own first, right? So share stories about hesitant clients who became your best customers. Introduce like active listening. So if you are at a networking event, be so interested in the other person and how you can help them and how you can be a connector for them and useful to them. And if you're finding that, they're not maybe a potential client right now, or they're not in the stage of buying, that is okay. Still be willing to nurture them, still be willing to give resources, still be willing to be of value to them in whatever way you can be, even if it's not giving like your freebie or your webinar, even if it's making an introduction for them to someone who might be a good collab partner for them or something. You just want to be a person of value because this is going to serve you in helping. It's going to serve you in that people are going to see you as a value giver and people are going to trust you more. And that creates people who are more ready to buy from you. So we also need to ask powerful questions that allow you to hear what people's true motivators are and what their true barriers are. So let's say you aren't seeing everyone as a potential client. You're kind of ruling them out, you're not going to ask as many questions. You're not going to be as interested in them. You're going to kind of move on and check out, not really listen. But if you saw everyone as a potential client, you'd probably lean in, you'd probably ask better questions, you'd probably coach better, you'd probably create better resources for people, you'd probably have better content inspiration. So every single day you have an opportunity to see everyone as a potential client. And when you do, everything else is going to improve as the aftermath of that. Because you're going to be more curious, you're going to be listening, you're going to be more inspired. And the other thing I want you to think about is if you were to let's think about the end result of having the right people in your audience ready to buy. I want you to work backwards, and I want you to ask yourself, okay, what actions would I be taking to have these amazing correct people, how you define correct. And first of all, you should define what is the right person. What am I expecting here? Because if your expectations are like a unicorn expectations, like, oh, they're, rich and they're perfect and they show up to every session perfectly, and whatever your definition is, we need to kind of look at that. But if you're just saying people who are ready to buy and have the solution that you offer, we can work backwards and say, okay, what actions would you be taking to be the right person for these people? Not them being right for you, but you being the right person for them. How would you be showing up? What would you be doing? And then also work backwards and say, what kind of power feelings would you need to feel on a regular basis? Would you need to be feeling creative? Would you need to be feeling empowered? Would you need to be feeling confident? And how are you going to create that with your thoughts? What do you need to be thinking about? And, what kind of things would you be thinking, feeling, and doing to be the right person for these right people that you want to attract? And here's the thing that frustrates everyone. We're making a hypothesis. You're not going to know until you try it. So we can give you educated guesses based on what's worked for past clients. Like I can do that. I could give you systems. I can give you an example. I can teach you how to do certain lead gen things that have worked. However, for your business and for you uniquely, it is still going to be a hypothesis that you have to test. And the willingness to test it and the willingness to see everyone as a client before they're a client takes some grit and some commitment and some determination. And it takes patience, right? So you have to be willing to feel that too to attract the right people. Okay, next tip on becoming the right person to attract the right people. So let's go a little bit deeper into that. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of Tim Ferriss, but he always talks about be, do, have. Like when you set goals, rather than just setting a goal, think about who do you need to be, what do you need to do, and what would you have to be able to accomplish that goal. So we need to break this down in your case. If you want to attract the right clients, what kind of traits and what kind of ways would you need to be? How would you embody the transformation that you offer in a way that's so contagious that people are like, I want some of that? How can you live your message? How can you be your message every day, right? And then do is what can you consistently demonstrate, or what can you do to show your expertise and approach, right? What can you do either locally or online to be the kind of person who's attractive to the right people? And then have, which is what do you need to have in place to have people see that you can help them get results? And what kind of maybe frameworks or methods or resources or things like that do you need to have? And have you guys ever heard how Tony Robbins says if you want to attract the right partner, you have to be the right partner? Like he's like, focus less on what you want your partner to have as qualities and traits, and instead ask yourself, who would you need to be to attract that kind of person and that person to find you the love of their life, right? So focus more on that than needing your people to be the right people. And then lastly, share personal examples. Like, so when you're being, doing, and having, share personal examples of how shifting your own identity and your own mindset and your own habits, how that helped you achieve certain results that your clients want. The more you can tell stories, the more people who are going through those phases of changes, the more they'll emotionally be invested in what you do, because people are emotional, not always logical. So the last step here goes off of that, which is uncover dreams worth paying for. Okay. So many of you are marketing things like, here's a nice recipe, here's a nice tip for organizing your pantry or whatever. But when people buy things, it's usually emotional, as I said, and not always logical and tactical. And I am the queen. I know this. I'm the queen of giving tips and practical value, but I'm not always the queen of telling stories. And I have every single mentor program, mastermind, group program that I've been in has always told me, Hailey, you need to tell more stories. You need to share the emotions of the journey. And for me, I've always told myself it doesn't come naturally, which I know is just a limiting belief. I know I have a lot of stories I could share, but it's hard for me to pull them out of myself. And sometimes I'll use AI to give me prompts to tell stories, and that really helps. But if you also struggle with that, I want to encourage you to tell more stories and help people see what is the dream that you're living or that your clients are living. And one thing that you can do as well to help uncover what your target audience's dreams are is a couple things. One, you can do some research. You could connect with some people who may be, your target audience, and see if money and time weren't obstacles, what would be their ideal scenario in their life or in their health or in their whatever area you help with, relationship. Then you want to explore what transformations would mean for them. What would that look like in their life? What would that mean for their identity? What would that mean for the people around them in their life? Instead of just surface level, you'd be happier, you'd be healthier, things like that. And then you can also use what if scenarios to help them visualize a new reality. So if you can make more content that shows the what if and helps them play in that world instead of being in the current reality, that could be good. And demonstrate how to connect your offerings directly to their dreams. So how can you show that your method, your framework is that bridge that helps them get to the destination? So if you've never, gotten really clear about what kind of dreams does your ideal client have and what kind of problems would they be willing to pay to solve, that might be something you want to dig deeper in. And in my inner circle, if you are listening to this and you want my market research interviews workbook, you already have it, but if you want me to give you the direct link, so it's super easy to have right now, let me know. Okay, now, the other thing is I just want to share one example recently about being willing. So when we were talking about how you have to be willing to be the right person and willing to treat everyone as a client and willing to go in curious and willing to ask questions and willing to be patient, all that kind of stuff, I have a lot of what I call networking calls or collaboration calls. And a lot of times they'll turn into a collab and, maybe we'll get a new follower. You'll get several new email subscribers. So sometimes it's great. Sometimes we'll get a ton of new email subscribers from doing a collab or things like that. But other times it's one here and there. Someone 2 years reaches out and said, I heard you on that podcast and now I'm booking a call, things like that. And it all collectively adds up. But, one of the things that you have to be ready for is that any of those things could be great opportunities if you open your mind to it and if you're willing to do a lot of them to find the right ones. So I had a networking call recently that I thought was just going to be a networking call, but the person was actually interested in what I had to offer and wanted to book a discovery call and all of that. But if I had shown up thinking this is not going to be worth it, this is going to be a waste of my time, I probably would have approached it differently. I probably wouldn't have asked as many questions, probably wouldn't have actively listened as much to the point where I could be the kind of person who is attractive to someone like that looking for solutions, right? So I just want to show you that all these tips that we shared, that we went over today, these will accumulate over time and help you grow your clientele, but also help you grow to be the kind of person that your clientele wants. All right, so let's just kind of summarize. We talked about making sure that you are understanding the phases of change and that not everybody is in the ready to buy phase of change or the action phase of change. Most need to get educated, need to contemplate, need to have the trust built with you. Then we talked about your role as their guide through the phases of change and who you need to be and how you need to create content and messaging and be the kind of person at networking events where you can facilitate change and be interested in the other person. We talked about seeing everyone as a potential client and not closing yourself off or judging your prospects immediately and dismissing them. We need to instead lean in, see everyone as a potential client, become the right person to attract the right people. So we talked about be, do, have, and then uncovering dreams worth paying for. Okay, so if you want to reflect on this, I would love to hear your reflections, and I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks. Hey there, today I want to let you know about a free resource that I've created to go with this coaching episode. If you are listening to this episode about the phases of change and finding warm leads, one of the things I mention in today's episode is how listing yourself in coaching directories can help you attract warmer leads because they're actually searching for a coach. And I've put together a resource that has a list of directories, apps, and companies that tend to hire coaches. And I want to share it with you for free. So you can get it in the resources section of the show notes today. The show notes will be at haileyrowe.com/ready-to-buy. And the way you spell my name is HAILEYROWE. And that's haileyrowe.com/ready-to-buy. When you get to that page, scroll down to the resources section of today's episode, and you'll see that free resource. Enjoy.
Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. And if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.